Today on How It's Made. Wind generators, the future of renewable energy. PVC gloves, giving labourers a helping hand. Thermoformed glass, art that's fragile but functional. And fire engines, custom made to save lives. But first, wind generators harness the power of the wind to produce electricity. As the turbine's blades revolve, they drive a rotor that generates power. This can charge a set of batteries, or even feed a transmission grid. Wind power is a renewable energy source that doesn't pollute. This type of wind generator is a recreational model, designed to power a small dwelling with up to 500 watts of electricity. To make the propeller, a template is laid on a plank of cedar, a rot-resistant wood that's flexible and durable, yet lightweight enough for the slightest breeze to set it spinning. After tracing, workers drill a hole at each end and in the middle, then remove the template and do a rough cut using a bandsaw. Then they put the template back, using those holes they drilled to align and secure it in place. Using a router this time, a precision cut is made. The plank of wood now has the contour of a propeller. The next step is to form the profile. To do that, the wood is bolted onto the right side of a specially designed device called a propeller carving machine. On the left side is the propeller model. After adjusting the model to the proper angle, they start to cut. As the machine's roller runs over the model, it guides the shaper to carve the wood exactly like the model. It takes 8 passes to get the profile just right. Once the ends have been marked and the excess cut off, it leaves one side flat and the other curved, like an aeroplane's wing. Now workers widen the hole in the middle of the propeller and sand off the ridges left by the carving, using a low-pressure inflatable drum sander, the only type flexible enough to really get into the curves. Next, they check the balancing, which is so sensitive a penny could spoil the equilibrium. Finally, a coat of waterproof epoxy paint is applied. Next, the alternator is assembled. This is the component that generates electricity when the propeller spins. Insulation is wrapped around what's called the proportional electronic regulator. It's then installed along with wiring into the alternator's casing. This regulator controls the electrical charge and current. The propeller spins this rotor shaft, creating an electrical charge that sends a current from the alternator to the batteries. Once the casing's bolted shut, a cooling fan is mounted on the shaft's protruding axle. This fan will expel the heat that the spinning generates. Next, workers assemble the parts that make up what's called the lolly shaft, the axis on which the propeller sits. The axis enables the propeller to pivot towards the direction of the wind without twisting the wires that run to the batteries. Finally, they connect the wires from the lolly shaft to the alternator. This rubber cover protects the connection from the elements. Now workers assemble what's called the propeller governor, a key component that prevents the propeller from overspinning and breaking down in high winds. When the propeller spins too fast, the centrifugal force pulls on these springs. This activates the braking flaps, generating drag to slow the propeller down. Again, precision balancing is critical, otherwise damaging vibration will occur. The propeller's rudder is then mounted onto the back end of the wind generator's frame. On the other end, the alternator is fixed, followed by the propeller and propeller governor. They're both painted to protect against the sun's UV rays. Now, we just need some of nature's breath to get the whole thing going. Polyvinyl chloride, commonly known as PVC, is a durable material similar to plastic. PVC gloves are waterproof, even chemical-proof. All kinds of labourers rely on them, from commercial fishermen to oil refinery workers. Production begins at the cutting station with stacked sheets of cotton flannel. Using a hydraulic cutting machine and a series of dies, workers slice through some 20 layers in one fell swoop, cutting out the pieces required to make cotton gloves. Those gloves will either be sold as is or used as linings for PVC gloves. The next step is to sew the pieces together. It takes a speedy seamstress just 30 seconds by hand. They sew on a wrist, made of a cotton and lycra knit. This seamstress works the wristing machine so quickly, we had to ask her to slow down, so that we could actually see what she's doing. Throughout the sewing process, these cotton gloves have been inside out. This next machine turns them right side in, transferring them onto a heated hand form. The machine then presses each glove onto the form. Gloves drop down to a conveyor belt below and are transported to a worker who inspects, then pairs up the left and right. Elsewhere in the factory, workers prepare the PVC solution. The recipe varies according to the glove model, but generally consists of colouring and 5 to 8 different chemicals. An antibacterial and antifungal solution are added to combat odour from hand perspiration. To apply the PVC, workers slip a metal form into the thumb of each lining, then put the lining onto a thumbless hand form. If the hand and thumb forms were in one piece, it would be difficult to remove the stiff PVC glove afterwards without tearing. Linings go through what's called the singer, a propane flame that burns off any dust or loose threads. Then it's into the PVC bath. The basin of liquid PVC moves upward, coating the liners. As the basin descends, the excess drips off. Then the gloves go for a spin under infrared lamps for about 45 seconds. The spinning spreads the PVC uniformly so that it doesn't accumulate on the tips of the fingers, forming clumps. The heat ensures it dries evenly. After a second coat, the gloves pass through a propane-fired furnace for about 20 minutes at 190 degrees Celsius, then through a cooling chamber for 5 minutes. For glove models with extra strong grip, PVC chips are blown onto the first coat of PVC while it's still wet. When the gloves go through the furnace, the heat embeds the chips. After cooling, the gloves are dried and cured and ready to handle a hard day's work. Coming up in How It's Made. Thermoformed glass, art that's fragile but functional. And fire engines, custom built to save lives. See you after the break.
În această seară la ora 21, tehnici esențiale de supraviețuire cu Bear Grylls în medii ostile. Iar de la 22, vânătorii de șerpi. 4 echipe caută reptile veninoase. Salvați din mâinile răpitorilor la 23. Operațiuni uimitoare.
Românii, un paradox. Moștenitorii dacilor, dar și urmașii Romei. Ne îndoim în fața furtunii, dar nu ne frângem. Avem drumuri grele în oraș, dar spectaculoase peste munte. Investim puțin în știință, dar luăm multe premii la Inventică. Și facem vinuri bune, dar e o bere cea care ne face cunoscuți. 100% malți, dar și 2 tipuri de hamei. Ursus, o experiență intensă ca viața de român.
Când te doare capul, lucrurile normale ți se par insuportabile. Ia un Codamin P, simplu, fără dureri de cap.
Noul Yaris de la Toyota. Pune-l la încercare. Inovațiile îl fac puternic, dar economic. Spațios, dar compact. La provocările orașului, noul Yaris răspunde cu inteligența tehnologiei. Vino să descoperi pachetul ingenios de avantaje Yaris. Prețuri geniale, 5 ani garanție, condiții speciale de finanțare plus opțiune de buyback. Noul Yaris, generația Geniu de la Toyota.
Fă-ți ziua mai frumoasă! La Pizza Hut cu doar 19,9 lei mănânci câte pizze vrei! Hai la Pizza Festival! Pizza Hut, clipele neuitat!
Veniți pe Valea Bădislavei, la Ticveni, biserici vechi, peisaje de vis, locuri extraordinare, vacanțe perfecte. Vizitează Valea Bădislavei!
Știi cât costă un grătar de 38 cm diametru și țepușă de frigăruie inclusă? La Practicăr doar 14,99 lei. De acum îți permiți mai mult. Vino și convinge-te! Practicăr, pentru ideile tale.
Dureri de cap, dureri menstruale, dureri articulare. Poți scăpa rapid de ele cu Paduden. Padurere, Paduden. Cine spune că azi trebuie să fie o zi obișnuită? Trăiește aventura în fiecare zi cu Nokia Lumia 800.
Noua generație Chevrolet este pregătită să te impresioneze cu un design plin de stil, motoare puternice, siguranță maximă, dotări de excepție, plus o ofertă cu adevărat specială. Chevrolet Cruze de la 9.299 euro. Descoperă și oferta diesel.
Chevrolet.
Mai zgomotos,
Probably easier to detach your head first.
mai românesc,
Tell me that isn't happening.
mai primejdios, mai deplasat.
More is better.
Top Gear.
Program prezentat de Ursus fără alcool.
Welcome back to How It's Made. Later we look at fire engines, custom made to save lives. But first, decorative glass objects can be blown or thermoformed, 2 very different glass-making techniques. In glass blowing, the artisan shapes hot glass by rolling it and blowing air into it. Thermoforming is more of a moulding process, better suited for making flat objects. When you look at these magnificent pieces, it's hard to believe they begin as run-of-the-mill window glass, which comes in ready-made panels, in thicknesses ranging from 3 to 10 millimeters. The first step is to measure the overall dimensions of the glass panel, then divide it into pieces, each slightly larger than the object it will become. This panel will be turned into large decorative plates, so it's divided into